It's time! I want you guys to see it first, but let's try this out. Alright. Y'all looking at it? Y'all looking at it? Yes! I've really been excited to pick this one up. I don't know what to say. Like, I've been wanting to pick this up. And I got it. God is good. Alright. Catch you later. Everyone, it's time to strap yourselves in because you guys are in it for a long one. I just finished The Grace of Kings and I am in love with this book. This is everything I can ask for and more. So I gave this a whopping 6 out of 5 stars. Okay, so theoretically 5 out of 5 stars, but it's me. I'm giving it 6. Okay, and let's talk about why this is so great and why this worked out so well for me. This story follows 2 men who are rebelling against the current ruling system, and mainly it's following Mata and Kuni, our 2 main characters, but truly we're following a bunch of characters through a story of warfare, bloodshed, and the cruel pains and desperations of war, and this story spans over 20 to 30 years easily. It's an epic military fantasy, and I did not know this is what I've wanted all this time. And to be frank, giving it a 6 out of 5 stars means that there's practically nothing wrong with this book, and it's true. I feel like this book was perfectly built for a reader like me, and it's time to really tell you why I love it so much and to tell you why it really, really seriously works for me. Essentially, The Grace of Kings is a plot-driven book, and it's really fast-paced, and yet you don't feel like you're missing out any details of the book. It still feels like you have time to marinate in the information, you have time to marinate with your characters and understand who they are as people. In theory, I shouldn't like the way that The Grace of Kings tells its story because it's more about a warfare that spans over a really long period of time, and it's not really focused solely on a few small groups of characters where I can learn to love and grow with them. But the thing is, Ken Liu doesn't skim on the character growth and the character development here. I win, essentially. Many people talk about how The Grace of Kings narrates like a history book, and to a certain extent, I do agree with this standpoint. Because Ken Liu focuses on the major events of the book, and like I said, this is a story of warfare, he's really truly focusing on all the main points of this gigantic war that's spanning across such a long period of time. And so, in a way, his story narrates the history of the warfare that happens in this fictional steampunk China. And so definitely in that way, it feels like a history book. However, guys, do not for a moment think that the writing was dry or that it was boring. In fact, it is anything but that. Like I said, we follow a huge cast of characters that are pushing this story forward, that's pushing this warfare forward. And so instead of following a single character and their point of view, we are seeing from an eagle's eye point of view, where we're looking at everything that's unfolding in front of us. And that is what is so amazing of the story. The thing about history books is that we do not know, and we don't usually know, how a character feels or thinks or why they make the decisions they make. And I just wanted to say that Ken Liu's writing really, really benefited the way that he wanted to tell his story. He's not someone who really over-describes, or he's not someone that used really flowery writing. And so with his really simple style of writing, it's very easy to follow through in a story without the need to really truly over-analyze anything. And so in that way, I truly appreciate the writing and truly really enjoy the way that he writes. Like I said before, Ken Liu never misses in terms of his character development and growth. And so we are following our characters in their heads most of the time. And so in a military fantasy that is solely focused on the ideas of warfare, I assume that I should come to hate most of the men in here because the characters are mostly men, and they want war and they want to hurt others, and I should theoretically not like them. But when you have their perspective and you have their thought lines and you see why they do what they do and why they want to protect what they want to protect, it's hard to not feel for them and understand where they're coming from, and just inherently not feel like they're in the wrong, which is weird. The humanistic qualities truly allows me as the reader to feel for them in terms of their joy, in terms of their pains and sorrows, and the dilemmas. Our two main characters, Kuni and Mata, are characters that I thought that I shouldn't come to love that much, but I really did I really did enjoy them as characters. And the two of them are so contrasting from each other. They're so different because so one is a lot more loose and fun-loving and is not too serious about life, which is Kuni. And Mata is someone who is really, really serious. He has a legacy to follow. He has a lot of things to prove in his life. And so he's really someone who is very stoic, you know? And yet the two of them coming together as characters is probably one of the most interesting friendships that I've seen in fantasy. And the progression of their relationship truly makes my heart sing and cry at the same time. And guys, if you're a romance reader, you know about the miscommunication trope that happens in romance a lot of times. If you like that, or if you really hate that, I'm sorry, but our two main characters miscommunicate so much and over again that you might find that you want to kill yourself from their miscommunication. But you read it and you know. One of the flaws that a lot of people point out is the lack of female characters in these books, but I don't find that to be a problem. If I'm not wrong, it's about like 5 female characters that are in this series so far with the first book. I don't really have a problem with not having many female characters. I guess I will have a problem if the characters are usually always portrayed to be the stereotypical female, that they're weak, they don't do anything, they can't do anything for themselves, and that they're always relying on their male stronger counterparts to get shit done. And no, okay guys, I appreciated the way that he portrayed his female characters. It's not that they're in the front lines fighting this war all the time, not every single one of them. They all have their own strengths that contributed to this war, and they all so goddamn cool. And it really, when you put them all together, it feels like that scene where, you know, in Endgame, where all the female characters were just like lining up to fight Thanos, and they're just like coming together, and you're like, female empowerment! It's not that I really truly care so much about female empowerment in the book, especially written by a male author, but to see that kind of empowerment for females in his story that are all contributing to this war in their own different ways, it's just so heartening to see. And I just love it. I just wanna I love all the female characters in here, and I'm just so glad that Ken Liu did not do any of them dirty in any way possible. I want to talk about the world for a bit. Like I said, this is a fictional steampunk China, and I read up some interviews where Ken Liu did say that his world is based off a lot of this, that his world and his story is based off the histories of China, though he did not say that this is exactly a retelling of any of China's history at all. So I get that and I see the inspiration, but what I really like about his version of China, sort of, is that steampunk element. It adds a grittiness to the world that just is quite unlike anything. I don't read a lot of steampunk based fantasy, and I just love it. I love the mechanics of things. There's not really magic in this world. It's a soft magic system. Some characters seem to have some level of magic, but if anything, this is more of like a more historical than fantasy novel that's fictional. Yeah, and the steampunk element where they're using mechanics, flying machines, hot air balloons to attack each other, and I thought that was really fun, and it's different for a world that I usually read about. Yeah, and now I just want to talk about why this worked so well for me personally. When I was really young, when I was going to primary school, I was based in a school that really cares about Chinese values and history. In the morning, we would learn about Chinese poems and Chinese proverbs that will really help us to get a good sensing of Chinese values. And in the afternoon, we get lessons about Chinese history in a really like brief setting and broad setting. But my teacher also loved telling stories for 西游记, which is Journey to the West. And that was during pockets of time between lessons. And if we like finished the curricula and we had some leftover time, like 10 to 15 minutes of the class left, he would actually tell us stories of Journey to the West. And I felt like all of those things in my childhood actually builds up secretly an interest towards Chinese history and Chinese values, and this need to understand this really interesting part of history. And in that sense, I believe that it really created an innate longing to understand these great warriors and great kings and their failures and their successes, you know? And that's why I felt like The Grace of Kings was exactly what my childhood little self would have wanted to read. And I fulfilled that dream for myself, I guess. Yeah. You know, I was reading up the inspirations of The Grace of Kings and finding out like why did Ken Liu want to write this story? And I really understood the intent behind it as an Asian Chinese person. Yeah. And I just love this story so much. I don't know what else to tell you, because I know that this story is just everything I thought I wanted, but so much more. It's a fantasy that it's quite unlike anything. It's a fantasy that I read and loved and really didn't know is something that I needed so much in my life. And so I'm very much impressed by The Grace of Kings and Ken Liu's writing. And I'm sure that I'll be truly in love with the Dandelion Dynasty as I read into the series. But the true question we must ask is, on a scale of dragons, how badly do I want to continue on with this series? It's a 4 out of 5 dragons, everyone. Is that surprising? Because I think you expected it to be like a 5 out of 5 dragons, or maybe even 6. But because of the way that it ended in The Grace of Kings, it ends really nicely, as if you could read The Grace of Kings without continuing on with the story. But as the reader reading through the entire thing, you know that there's so much more that can do. You know that there's so much more you can discover, and history continues without you. And so that's how it feels like with The Grace of Kings. And so I am ready to read the next one, and I am excited to read the next one, but I don't feel like I have to pick it up so quickly. And with that being said, everyone, I will grace The Grace of Kings the library's stamp of approval today. Let's do it. Let's grace The Grace of Kings. So that is the end of the review, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. Would you be reading The Grace of Kings? Are you intimidated by the size of that book? Or are you really intrigued to actually pick it up? Let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!